Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, 다들 하지 뻔한 이야기.
Well, Steve, welcome to the pod. Steve
Oh,
and
thanks.
I chat a little bit about all of the current pickleball stuff. Steve is a legend of the game, and with the conversation about the origins of the game, we figured who better to chat with than Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I think I can, at least from 74 on, that's when I started playing tournaments. And then I was around some of those guys that played on that original court on Joel Pritchard's court.
I feel like there's so many different things we could potentially talk about. I know we have a few that we want to hit on. You're widely credited with, between you and your father, introducing the first composite paddle. So moving away from wooden paddles.
I have.
If you have it, we would love
Yeah.
to see it. And then I want to hear your perspective on where paddle tech is right now, the issues with the hot paddles, how it's changing the game. Maybe just like your general thoughts on where we are today from, when you got introduced to the game, specifically introducing the first deviation from wood paddles.
Well, I'm pretty opinionated on those topics.
He doesn't usually hold back.
Yeah, there's some things I don't care about, one way or the other, but this is one of them I do. There's like 3 hot buttons for me. But this is the original first composite paddle my dad made. Wow. My dad was an engineer for Boeing. My dad was my biggest fan. He wasn't a player yet, but he would come and watch me play all our local, at the time, USAPA. In fact, I found one of the original rule books that Sid Williams put together. He's formed the first governing body of tournaments. My partner and I, Richard Skevington, a high school buddy of mine who I taught how to play, we kept losing in the finals to Doug Gardner and another these were top tennis players who switched over to pickleball. Doug Gardner's father happened to be the governor of Washington State, Booth Gardner, at the same time. So my dad would be standing, watching, hey, there's the governor watching. We're playing in front of the governor and my dad. Gardner's dad was a big fan of Doug, just like my dad was a fan of me. But we kept losing in the finals. And I went home one day frustrated and said, Dad, I weighed my tennis racket. I was a collegiate tennis player. My tennis racket weighs 7 times more than than a tennis ball. When I weighed my pickleball paddle, this was what I was using then, made by Pickleball Inc., the guys who invented pickleball, it was 13 times heavier. So I said, Dad, the ratio's all wrong. And like a week later, I'm home visiting. I was a school teacher at a time. And he throws down this paddle and another paddle just like it so we could go hit with it and see what we thought. Well, it was a light bulb moment. The first hit. Our sweet spot's bigger. The ball's coming off a little faster because our hands are moving faster. So it wasn't a month later, we're playing on our next USAPA tournament, and then we beat everybody, including Doug. Then a month later after that, we're selling paddles to friends, and we're coming up with our lightning bolt logo. So that turned into Pro Light, and you did not win a tournament from 84 to 2000 and whenever Pickleball Inc. finally started copying us without our paddle, so something like 15 years. So that was how all that happened, and we were selling paddles out of the trunk of our car at tournaments for $20, selling them take them to local sporting goods stores, and then pretty soon we're getting orders from all over the U.S.
Yeah, you totally changed the game. But at the time, if you introduce this new paddle, this new technology, is anybody like, hey, hold on, let's make sure that's legal? Was there any sort of like standards or regulations you had to abide by?
There weren't many regulations at all. There was a local area near where I'm at in Oregon where he was going to ban them, but he really couldn't because everybody had one and wanted to play with it. And then Sid Williams, who created the first governing body, accepted him right away. Oh, I will tell you a story. One of those championships that Richard and I won, as we're walking off the court, Doug Smith, he was the general manager of Pickleball Inc., So they were the inventors of pickleball, and they created that company, and they made their money selling wooden paddles. Doug ripped the paddle out of my hand and threatened to sue me. And
oh, wow. Okay.
And now it's funny because, I mean, we're all friends because really those are the inventors. He worked for the inventor. I think he's a relative of Barney McCallum. But we were really careful that our paddle never said pickleball on it. They did have the rights to pickle-ball. So we were careful about that. They didn't have rights to do that. So they scared us. I remember kind of like, ooh, I was like a 25-year-old, like, ooh, I'm scared because I never had been threatened to be sued before.
Yeah, somebody throws around a lawsuit. You just want nothing to do with it.
Right.
You keep, you've mentioned the inventors a couple times. I think we got to talk about, we recently on our last podcast kind of profiled this book that emerged in 2023. We just published kind of a deep dive analysis overview of the book and its claims on thedinkpickleball.com, I believe yesterday or the day before, put it in our newsletter. I thought it was fascinating. I was surprised that I hadn't heard others really talk about this. I did find one interview with the author on YouTube, but it's been relatively and largely ignored across the pickleball community. There was one quote from him where he said, I think this is more of a prehistory than the true origin of pickleball, which I think is kind of the philosophy I'm gravitating toward, is this author's story of his family and the quirky game they were playing was kind of like a precursor to what pickleball eventually became and what Joel Pritchard, Barney McCollum, and Bill Bell ultimately formalized and introduced to, non-islanders in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you view this new emergent origin story of pickleball? Do you think it's valid? Are you sort of like, nope, it's Joel Pritchard and the guys at Bainbridge Island? Or how are you viewing this? And do you think it's credible?
Here's what I believe. I believe that it's very possible that there was a similar game invented on Whidbey Island that Joel had seen, and that could be the seeds of it. But I mean, you can't really call them the inventors if they did nothing with it. So Joel and Barney, they were a team. In fact, I think if it was just Joel, I'm just assuming this, because like if it was just, I know this with our paddles, if it was just me, someone would have came out with the paddle 20 years later, and I would have said, I invented that in '84, but I didn't because we didn't do anything about it. But because Dad and I together as a team did it. And I think Joel and Barney as a team and Bill Bell as a team did a lot. I mean, they created rules, they created paddles, they got into the PE catalogs, and I was a PE teacher at the time. In fact, there was a brief period where I was going to PE conferences manning the Pickleball Inc. booth to sell sell their paddles. Just because you come up with something, but you don't do anything about it, to me, that you're not inventing anything. I mean, we go back every invention. If you're talking about the hacky sack, didn't start out as a hacky sack. It was John Stahlberger, who happens to be an acquaintance of mine, that was invented in Oregon here too. And he helped me out with Dad and I with another invention later. But that was from traveling in Asian countries, and they were kicking a bamboo ball over a net, and he got this. That was the seeds of that idea. When you think of pickleball, paddle tennis, not paddle, but paddle tennis, which is now pop tennis, that's been around since the 20s. That was a very similar size court. It was a dead tennis ball. Platform tennis has been around since the 1880s. Which now you could say that was the precursor to padel, who's also very popular now, in a screened off area. So all these sports have a seed, a roots to them. To me, Barney and Joel and Bill, well, those are the inventors because they did something about it.
What about the name though? So I think even if we're kind of in agreement that it was Joel and those guys who took it to what it is today, they deserve most of the credit. But the name, this author claims, comes from his aunt's like gherkin or pickle recipe. That's a discrepancy because it would be very coincidental if they just happen to call these things the same name, pickleball, or something having to do with pickles. That to me is the one thing where I'm like, I'm having a little bit of trouble wrestling with that one.
Yeah, the name of pickleball has, I would say this is my 51st year playing pickleball. I would say for my first, until probably 8 years ago, we all believed the dog story, the pickle. Now, the reason we believed that was because that was the story that was generated. It was in all the papers. And I think Joel and Barney, Barney was a good salesman. It sounded really good. And so that was a good way to promote it. Now, I've heard Frank, right out of Frank's mouth, talk about that definitely was not true, that Frank is the son of Joel, by the way. And he spoke at the first Hall of Fame dinner, and that was a question we had. That was 2017, that it definitely did not come from the dog. Because they didn't own the dog yet. It came later, and that his mom created. Now that it was his mom with the crew boats, and I believe that one. Now it's funny because Barney, on his dying days, said it was the dog.
Tyler Leung also says that it's a hill that he will die on, that pickleball is named after the dog.
Well, how could you say that when they didn't own the dog yet?
It's an interesting question.
I heard there was one of the guys I know that's kind of a sleuth on this, went back and even looked at the dog, when they got the dog license or whatever, and it didn't come till after that. So I just can't believe the dog story. I believe that they named the dog after the game.
I think it's one of those things we just agree we'll never know. You choose your lore, and it is what it is. I don't know if we'll ever have a definitive answer.
I want to move on to some of the things that we've chatted about. So, Steve, in recent history from what I've known you've been lobbying for, you were completely instrumental in USAP adopting the drop serve. We've got you to blame for that one, huh?
Correct.
And so we chat periodically about all of these new ways to nerf the serve when we completely have something that is enforceable in the drop serve. So give us your elevator pitch on drop serves.
I will. So going back probably 10 years ago, I started putting videos out on YouTube about why I feel it should only be the drop serve. Now, I definitely didn't create it to nerf the serve. In fact, and that's not going to happen, by the way. People are going to have pretty good serve. I don't think they'll be quite as aggressive because it's all about contact point. And that's why Dekel Bar, his hips are quite a bit higher than the net. In fact, our best server locally is a woman. It's Brianna Kemp. That's Sean Kemp's daughter. Her hips are even higher than the net than Deckel's probably. And she has a faster serve, I think, than Eric Lang, one of our top players here. And so it's all contact point. But the reason I created it and wanted it was because there's no way to judge where that contact point is if you have an upward motion and if part of the paddle is above your wrist at impact. It happens too fast. And I see illegal.
You can't even tell in slow motion, to be quite honest.
No, people would post on the kitchen or back then the forum, is my serve legal? And they have a video, and there would be 100 responses, and 50 would in slow motion, and 50 would say it was legal, and 50 would say it wasn't. So I created it to get rid of the judgment factor on the serve. In fact, for me, I was getting fed up in fact, I was playing Scott Moore in a tournament, and he was doing his backhand slice serve. Please tell me, now it was only volley serves then, how you can create backspin, a driving backspin serve with an upward motion at impact.
You can create a passive backspin serve. You can't really create a driving backspin serve. So yes, you can backspin the ball coming low and high. However, it wouldn't be. Yeah, I do like it. We agree on this wholeheartedly, and I created a few videos of me hitting the drop serve, but it's mirrored right now. But it doesn't look unathletic in my opinion.
No.
You can step in. You can step into the ball. You can still hit it hard. You can weight transfer. I don't think it's going to nerf the serve, and it's completely enforceable. So are there any other projects like that you're working on? Like, what's the next forefront for you of what pickleball needs to change rules wise? Because I think you're spot on with the drop serve. USAP has added it. PPA, MLP probably won't for a very long time. What's the next thing from your end?
This drop serve idea was to replace the old serve, not to have it as an additional serve. So that would be
correct.
I would like it to be the only serve. Now, for instance, if we have wagering in pickleball, if we're in the Olympics, we can't be adding judgments that no one can judge. We've got to get rid of those. So that would be number one for me. Equipment-wise, I think, now for the pros, you guys are lucky you have the luxury of actually having your paddles tested legitimately by equipment. Now, me as an amateur going to play tournaments, it's the Wild West out there. They rub your paddle and they say, I just got done playing 2 tournaments in Arizona. In fact, my mixed partner and I were 70-year-old virgins this year. It's our first year we can play 70s. And we did very well. We won both and playing our best people our age. That's all I want to do now is play the best people my age. But anyway, they would rub our paddle and then they would say, is this an approved paddle? And we go, yeah, see, it says so right there. And they go, well, we don't care what it says. It's up to you to make sure it's approved. We played one team. It was approved, said so, and he said it was, but it was, and I won't say the brand. In fact, it wasn't a brand that you would typically think of as a trampoline paddle, but it was a trampoline. And there's no way now this is 99% of the pickleball population. We're dealing with not knowing what our opponent has, if it's legal or not. We have no.
Yeah.
So our strategy in that match, this was a men's match, we just kept the ball away from the trampoline paddle. We did not, he wasn't the better player, probably, if they both had equal paddles, but we kept it away from that paddle. My analogy of that is we're playing basketball and, we got to double team the guy with the really good tennis shoes on. That wouldn't
Yeah.
happen.
Well, Steve, how can you say that when you personally rewrote basically the not rewrote, but how do you determine what's an innovation versus what is bad for the game?
Yep.
You
Yep.
innovated, right? I don't think anybody in hindsight thinks that this is a bad innovation, but how can we stand here right now and say, like, that's not an innovation, that's too far? Because you had people saying the same thing when you made the first composite paddle.
Yes, but then everybody bought one, everybody had one, and everybody was on an equal playing field. Right now, you can't say that people are on an equal playing field. You know, the trampoline paddles, I think, add a little bit too much speed that takes out a variety of the shots that we use today. It's not as much thinking involved when you can just hit it hard, and a lot of the strategy's gone. So I think there is a limit that you can go past that spoils the game. And I just talked to some ex-pro racquetball players that are telling me that's what ruined racquetball, was the big, powerful, where the rallies got, all you had to do is have a good serve and a good kill, points over. That's what I don't want to see. So I think we've gone a hair too far. I'm not saying that I don't like what now we call the Gen 2 paddles. They weren't trampoliny, but, you know, at first, in fact, when I go back and look at these old rule books, no texture at all. And then a company comes out with texture, and then we go, oh, okay, I guess we can do that. And then they just keep going. The goalpost has just been moving. I would love to see it just set in place. And then, of course, the other huge factor is we can't have a paddle that plays one way today and plays another way next week.
The progressively deteriorating paddles that progressively get better. Right. I think we share the same opinion on that. It seems like while what you described, original paddles going from wood to composite, simply primarily increasing the sweet spot, but not necessarily changing the way the game is played on a fundamental basis. Whereas the innovation or difference now is paddles are completely changing the way the game is played. I feel like that's the difference between the two situations. But interesting to be able to talk with somebody who probably lived through this I'm sure you got plenty of criticism in 84 when you made that paddle.
Well, only by the company that was making, Pickleball Inc. that was making the competitive paddle. That was really the only pushback we had, was from Pickleball Inc. And it seems funny now because my dad was inducted in that first Hall of Fame with Barney and Joel. So it's kind of ironic, but
I think I would say, yeah, of all the guests we've had, it seems like you probably have the longest experience in the sport. You've seen more evolution than anybody else. So my question for you is, just given the evolution of the game to where it is today, especially these last 4 years, and all the capital flooding in, all the new innovations, whether it's in equipment, facilities, or whatever else. What's it like, you knowing where the game came from, to watch this? I don't know, you could call it like a money and land grab, like all these people coming in trying to capitalize on what was once just this backyard game. And for a while, when you were playing, something very niche that most people had never heard of.
Well, most of my life, when I would tell people I play pickleball, then I would have to go through my little explanation. Well, think of table tennis on steroids.
Yeah.
I had my little spiel.
Wait, are you the reason that is like the phrase? It's it's a smaller tennis with
maybe,
I mean, elements of badminton.
All of us, we basically, back in those tournament days of the early 80s, we had probably 80 consistent tournament players in the world. And we all loved the game, and we knew it was great, but we couldn't sell it because there were no courts to play on. And we were mainly playing indoors on gym floors. So that was a different style game. It was a lot slower.
For sure.
But no, I have to pinch myself that this is what's happened to pickleball. I can't really. Sometimes I think I'm in the middle of a dream. And how did this happen to my favorite sport? And how did I get in the Hall of Fame of a sport? Because I always loved following Hall of Fames. Like I did a book report when I was in 6th grade on Dr. Naismith, inventor of basketball. I thought that was so interesting. So, and I just had a really good friend, Larry Moon, visit this weekend, who's also in the Hall of Fame, and we talked about that. It's just I've just pinched myself. But I understand the money is money's gonna follow a sport like this, and that's going to continue because we're not only growing here, we're growing worldwide. And I think our growth might even seem small compared to the Asian Asian countries soon.
Well, Steve, we're gonna get you as a recurring guest when pickleball history stuff comes up. If you're up for
Yeah.
it, I think we got more to chat with you with for next time around as well. We want to know who some of the other OGs and who the original
Right.
Ben Johns was, all that stuff. But
Right.
we won't spoil it
Right.
for next time. But I know you cover a bunch of that on your podcast as well. I'm assuming you had Larry on over
I've
the
had
last few
Larry
days.
on, and it's funny because Larry's considered an OG, and to me, I consider him like a little baby newbie because he only started in 2010. I always think it's hilarious when I hear a player mentioned as a OG when I just remember when they were just learning and I'm hitting with them, like Rob Cassidy, considered an OG. I love Rob, and I taught camp with him. Just love that guy, and he loves the history, by the way, of pickleball. It's fun to see those people like that. But yeah, we have a podcast called the Pickleball Fountain of Youth. I teach at a club called Rex. We were the first indoor club here in Oregon, and it looks like soon we're opening up other court that's also going to feature padel. It'll be interesting to see if the pickleball players that are playing pickleball enjoy padel also. Have you played padel yet, any of you? Either one of you?
I've played.
Big
I'm
fan.
going to join a club here in New York.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
getting pretty into
Yeah.
it. It's pretty fun.
Well, it looks very
Yeah, it's a
athletic,
great
and
time.
it looks like a harder entry level, but it looks it does look really fun. I was giving lessons to a padel pro and very famous soccer player from our Portland area played for the Timbers, Diego Villari, and they're very interested in padel. And they pulled out their padel paddles, or I guess they're called rackets in padel, even though they don't have strings. That's funny. It feels really good when you hit a padel ball, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It feels it is a trampoline.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Right. Yeah. Have you ever hit a pickleball with a padel paddle?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I have. I used to train with that a little bit.
Okay. Think of Gearbox on steroids.
Yeah.
Gearbox is on steroids.
Yeah, I know, but in the pickleball world. But if you were to use that ball paddle in pickleball, it would be.
So I want to ask one more question. We talked a lot about the innovation. Do you feel like the sport's losing its identity at all? Are there any concerns around the way it's changing? Like it's changing too much? You know, when guys like a Zane Navratil come in and start doing chainsaw serves.
Zane's not going to like this, but I was so glad when they outlawed your serve because, but I won nationals in 2021 at men's doubles with Bob Deller, and I used it. And I knew it was going to be outlawed, but it was really effective for me because the other seniors hadn't seen it before. Because seniors usually don't innovate, but I thought I got to learn. And I'm trying to remember at that time if I could use my paddle or not. I think I could. It was before the snap.
2021, you could have used your paddle.
Yeah.
2022 was your fingers.
Yeah. Well, I got arthritis when I tried with my fingers. If someone started that as a kid, like Morgan Evans was the first probably to snap, and you did that your whole career, that joint's going to be gone in about 10 years.
All I wanted was a fair conversation about the chainsaw based on data. And if we ban it from that, that's okay.
Yeah.
But we didn't.
Well, here's the one thing. Here's why I didn't like the Zane saw serve. Most facilities, you could spin someone into a fence. We can't redesign all the facilities to fit that serve that spins people so wide. I do believe you're correct that people would learn how to read it. If you can read a table tennis serve, you can read a Zane saw serve, which way it's going to spin.
To be debated again next time.
All right, Steve, we got to let you go. I feel like we could do this all day long, so we'll definitely get you back on soon. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks,
Steve.
Bye.
Yeah, Joey, welcome to the pod. What are you doing in Australia at 1 a.m.?
4 a.m. Let's see, I had a Tim Tam to get ready for this.
Hell yeah.
And
dude, you need some Vegemite to wake your ass up.
I'd do a little bit more than wake me up, I think.
But seriously, what are you doing there? Are you playing the Major League Pickleball, or what event has brought you to Australia?
Yeah, so the MLP in Australia kind of came back. So I came to Australia 6 years ago to kind of get pickleball started out here with Timur Rifkin. So we did like a month out here really early on, and then got some messages about if I would come back and possibly play in that league and see some people that I started back then, and went ahead and did it. And there was 2 events kind of back to back within about 3.5 weeks of each other. So instead of going back and forth, I just stayed out here for the month. I leave to Auckland, New Zealand, maybe 2 days from now.
Damn, that sounds like a good time. I had so much fun in Australia for the PPA event earlier in the year. That's awesome. I didn't know you went a few years ago. That's pretty cool. What's been the progress like in Australia from your perspective?
Very much so. So when I went out there, it was basically nothing but badminton courts that we were using. And then my whole thing was getting old connections from my tennis to start putting some like temporary pickleball courts on their property and stuff like that on hard courts. I came up with Riff. I had some people that I met that were pretty big in Tennis Australia, which is basically their version of USTA. So came out to a different couple clubs, had to play some tennis with some of the guys to show them that I could play tennis in order for them to trust me to try pickleball. And yeah, it's been such a huge change now seeing the different, basically we're starting to see what we saw in the US 5 years ago where companies are starting to make courts and private courts, and then we have tennis clubs starting to turn their courts into pickleball courts. So yeah, it's really unique and cool to see.
Nice. Well, Joey was one of the OGs when I started playing pickleball, and you've won just about everything there is to win in pickleball. Been representing Gearbox for forever, and notably partnered up with Timothy Nelson in his comeback. Now, Joey is one of the best storytellers. You get Joey Farias, Jeff Warnick, and 2 cases of beer, and you're gonna have an absolutely phenomenal time. We got one of the three of those things here, but we wanted to ask you, like, what's the lore behind Timothy Nelson? Like, yeah, you ever keep in touch with them? Like, what is up with this?
So, 2019. So I guess it was like either late 2018, early 2019. I got a message from Tim Nelson saying, really like the way you play this, that, and I'm thinking of making a comeback. I would love to play with you. The funny thing is I just moved to Tucson, Arizona, about when that happened. And I maybe like a week later met him there. Did not know he was living there. Did not know he was playing out there. He was at the law school of U of A. Went out to a random park and was playing and saw this guy with a baggy shirt, this like random shoes and stuff like that. And I can kind of see him messing with people. Didn't know who it was. And then I saw the first like throat shot, full blast, straight into something.
Rec play? Oh, damn.
Oh my God, that's Tim Nelson. Sure enough, started playing a little bit there. And then, yeah, he said he wanted to make his comeback. We would play, if I would play with them. And yeah, we decided to play. We played like 6, 7 tournaments that year, all the majors at that time, and then a couple of one-offs that were closer to him.
So how did that like comeback go for Timothy? Because he, from what I understand, was dominant up until like 2014, 2015, had some health problems and stepped away from the game for several years, and then decided to come back that year. And correct me if I'm wrong, what the US Open was the first event back for him, correct? And you guys played and had a hell of a match.
Yeah, so that was the funnest. It was a great start. We get up in the morning, getting ready, and then I get to the courts, and he's warming up on a palm tree. So he's hitting a ball back and forth with the palm tree, so it had the different bounces, is what he was telling me, so he can get his hand-eye and all that good stuff. Well, he's coming with 2 different shoes, a panda hat on, just kind of random stuff. Get out there, have a decent, like, first match, good warm-up. And then our second round, I see we're playing Aspen Kern and Marcin Raspetsky. At that time, a couple months before, like the year before, he had served Aspen Kern with a notice on court. So I remember being on court with DJ Howard. We were playing Aspen and Matt Staub, and a guy taps me on the shoulder, asked me if I'm Aspen Kern. I was like, no, he's right there. Taps him. Like,
you and Aspen Kern, easily mistaken for one another.
So yeah, just hands him a letter through the fence, and Aspen reads it, throws the letter down, and then continues to destroy us right after. And then I find out that he got served by Tim Nelson in the state of Arizona for defamation of character and stuff like that, because I guess he was talking about him on Facebook. That started a whole thing back and forth with Tim and Aspen. And we're about to play them for the first time. And I'm like, oh gosh, like what's going to happen? How many times is Tim going to try to take his head off? All that good things. And then Marcin being such a great guy, I was like, oh, this could get really interesting. And for the most part, I think he went for one body shot and then he just played pretty normal, didn't really do any of his antics. I think he might have given them a puppet master at one point, and that was it. Won that match. He was all excited, played well, but didn't get too crazy. Then
Wait, hold on. I just need to clarify and make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So you and Tim Nelson are playing Aspen and his partner, and just before the match starts, you guys are on the court, and somebody through the fence serves Aspen Kern on behalf of Tim Nelson?
no, this was the serving was probably like 6 months prior. So they had already
Okay.
gone back and forth for a while online. Just then Aspen blocked everything, so that stopped that for the most part. I remember like walking around and people asking Tim, "You have a second round match against Aspen if you guys win your first. How's that gonna go?" And he just said, just gonna go out there and play pickleball. Super normal. I was like, "There's no way that's the only thing that's gonna happen." But basically was. It was good. So yeah, win that match.
Funny story. Aspen didn't show up to the match against Althoff and I in the next round. That was 2019, right? Because like we were sitting out there, it's us, the ref, and Marcin for like 15 minutes. They're calling him over the loudspeakers for forever, and we like gave him like 10 extra minutes. And then we're like, the ref is like, "I'm not waiting around here anymore. He's done." And then as soon as the ref walks off the court, we see Aspen sprinting over after that, and Marcin is just like livid. So that was right after your upset. But then you guys had another really good match right afterwards.
Correct. Yeah. So we played Ben and Kyle, who were the number one team at that time. We're warming up. Everything's good. Beginning of the match, and Ben and Kyle are just destroying the ball at Tim because one, I think Ben at the end of the match was telling me they were trying to break his paddle. So he had one of his old signature paddles that was like rattling. It looked like it was about to fall apart. So they tried to do that, but that didn't work. We end up, I don't remember what game we won, if we won 1 or 2. I feel like we won game 2 because I'm pretty sure Tim had figured out something that was working really well. Tim was known for having really good defense, like super soft hands. So they were attacking. He was resetting everything. At that point, the game had kind of changed, so resets only didn't really work. So then he started resetting and then would just basically sell out to the forehand side and slap forehands at Kyle. So that started working. Ended up winning game 2, and then, pretty close game 3. And then we come back from, I think we're like 9-6 down to 10-9 up on the second serve. They call a timeout. We come back and I think it's me. I think I served from the wrong side at 10-9 too. And at that point, that they wouldn't tell you. They just point side out. And I just remember thinking, I was like, no way, we just fucked that up. So
Damn.
not right back. Tim's having a little bit of heat issues. Yeah, a couple points later, I think we lost 14-12 or something like that in the third against them.
At 10-9, you serving, even though it wasn't supposed to be you serving, does the thought cross your mind to hit a nasty Nelson?
Yeah.
Probably not mine if I was serving. So, and who would have been in front? It would have been Ben in front. If it was Kyle, I would have done it. Ben. I think Ben would have been ready.
So after 2019, Tim stepped away from the game again. But what are some of your favorite Tim Nelson stories? I mean, I've got mine. The second time I ever met him was that Atlanta tournament, just a few months later, I believe. Any other Tim Nelson stories that stick out to you that feed the legend, the lore?
So there's one in particular. I think there was the match, a video of that match online of us losing to Ben and Kyle, and a player at the time, Curtis Campbell, had put something like, "Oh, that would have made a great comeback story. Too bad they lost at the end," or something like that. Nothing bad. I think Tim took it wrong, thinking like he was talking, a little bit of shit or something like that. Well, Curtis comes to me maybe like a month later, shows me this video from a DM that Tim had sent him, and it was just like a gazelle going through like a safari area, and a lion just fucking takes it out. Lion takes it out. He says that's the only thing that was sent to him for like a week. Just that video. No words, nothing. And then
no context.
Later on, he sends, if you can't tell by now, you're the gazelle, I'm the lion. You know, when I see this, that, whatever, right? If we get on the court. And then Curtis tried to apologize or something like that and try to smooth things out. Tim didn't let that happen. He said the only way that he would accept an apology was when we play and when I hit you, and I will hit you, you know, you get that tattooed, like a permanent tattoo of that on your body. So that was a good one, you know, knowing for just like yeah, pretty intense at some points, and then super funny on court, like randomly, you know, cracking jokes, trying to like lighten the mood when it got close and stuff like that. So yeah, you would see both sides of him. Super interesting guy, very smart, but yeah, off the court was almost like a completely different character. So super nice to almost anybody as long as like he felt that he was respected. I think that was a big part of it. And then yeah, whenever he didn't feel that respect, then a little bit of a different side of Tim would come out.
So who do you think is next, like in line, if there is such a thing? Who are the current biggest villains in pickleball? I don't think there's anybody that's close to Tim Nelson status, but like you're watching, like who's in that conversation?
So Tim was one, you know, that a lot of rules got changed in pickleball because of him. That was one of his biggest things. So like the whole thing of when we couldn't cross the net to be on the other side without hitting the ball, that was him. He would just stand on the other side and watch his partner dink with the other team at some point.
Yeah, no, there's a video on YouTube of him just crossing over to his opponent's side, and he's just like standing there for like 3 shots in a row, just like trying to mess with them.
Correct. There's a bunch of stuff like that comes to mind right now. Maybe like he's not quite as controversial as far as like Tim was. Maybe Federico's starting to push some boundaries here and there with you know, some mental timeouts and things like that. That's one. I think Alshon could ride it if he really wanted to.
He's got to double down on it.
Yeah, we told him that. That was our advice.
I think,
lean into it.
yeah, I think he does because he's been wavering, goes back and forth. Where sometimes it looks like he's about to go full in, and then he kind of pulls back a little bit. I think he's probably the closest overall. Super talented player, and yeah, can definitely have people, you know, both get behind him and then both just want to hate him while he's on court. Either way, it gets people watching and talking about pickleball, so it's a good thing.
Oh man, Tim Nelson would be absolutely incredible for pro pickleball right now. I think he should get a wild card back and then play against like the worst team in the draw, right? Like let him get just some shots at some people and then get some other matches as well. Like I would love to see that. I'm texting Pardo. Let's get a wild card for Tim Nelson. We can't let you leave without telling the Atlanta story of Tim's comeback.
Yeah, so when he got Nasty Nelson himself.
Oh, well, yeah, just go right to the punchline. Yeah, so he ate one.
No, so that was good, right? So we're playing Aspen Kern again. We're playing Aspen Kern and his partner, Zane Affleck, who is another mysterious pickleball character. The good thing about Atlanta, this was the funny one. We were practicing that morning with Colin and Deckel, I believe. So then Tim takes a headshot in warm-up practice to Colin. So he goes after him with a full shot from the kitchen. And then the next ball, Deckel starts dying laughing because he goes for the big swing. Looks like he's about to do it. Colin jumps and Tim dinks a ball under his feet. So that was his whole thing, right? Was to get people to jump, move out of the way, and then he can dink it past you. So yeah, that was one of the funniest parts, good way to start Atlanta. Get to the tournament, win our first match, and then we're about to play Zane and Aspen for the second time. They're like playing Aspen again, so I'm like, okay, is anything else going to go down? What's going on? Zane comes up to me and says, I'm going to Nasty Nelson Tim. I was like, there's no way. Like, you're just not.
So
it's not gonna...
He told everybody at that entire tournament that he was going to Nasty Nelson Tim. This was This was going on from like that entire morning. That was like my second pro tournament. I was like, what is going on? I don't even know what a Nasty Nelson is at this point, but you're going to do it. Okay.
Yep. Didn't believe him. I was like, okay, there's no way that's going to happen. Anyways, get on court. And sure enough, he wins the toss, chooses to serve, and then just rips the hell out of the serve right at Tim, hits him. Tim chunks his glasses out to the side of the court. Zane grabs his paddle and throws it outside of the court. Right? I'm looking, I'm like, what? And he goes to his bag, grabs a new paddle, and continues to play the match. Right? We end up playing that match. Think we lost that match. At the end of it, I remember Zane coming up to me, showing me the paddle that he served with, and that thing was 14 ounces. He had so much weight on that paddle, just particularly for that one shot. So yeah, that was his chance, and he nailed it. And yeah, it definitely Tim got really quiet after like during that match, and that was like the first time I'd kind of seen him seem that serious about a match. But yeah, overall it was fun and it was good.
Yeah. Do you know what Tim is up to these days?
So last I heard, he messaged me maybe like 8 months ago, 6, 8 months ago, checking in how I'm doing, how pickleball's going. He was back in Seattle doing the law thing, and I heard he was playing again, just at some random parts with Ashworth and some of those guys. I really haven't heard too much lately if he's been playing a bunch or not at all. So yeah, I should reach out again and see how he's doing and try to get him to play maybe a PPA or something. That'd be great.
That'd
But
be
he
sick.
lives in Seattle, you said? He lives out in Washington?
Yeah, that's where he was
Okay.
last I talked to him.
I just sent a text as we were talking here to somebody who played with him recently. I was like, "Can we get a game together with Tim? We'll go to him. Well, we just gotta. I just want to play with him, get it on video. I'm sure it'll produce some good clips for social, if
Oh
nothing
yeah,
else."
and he's even like in rec play. It's even a different Tim that you would get in an actual match. That's when like some of the craziest ideas of shots come out. He was definitely one of the first like innovators of a bunch of different shots when it came to like. I mean, he was the one that got the rule change of carrying the ball. So he would
Mhm.
flip and carry the shot. Um, it's super unique, talented player, and one of the smartest guys on court that I'd ever played with.
That's a good insight. Like the fact that he was more of a cerebral player and had a lot of strategy to his game. Obviously, people who know of Tim Nelson today who didn't see him play just know of him as like a wild man. He was the lion chasing the gazelle on the court. So it's cool to hear that he was like also a smart, thoughtful player as well. You said
Yeah,
he was in law school at
correct.
UVA. Yeah, all right. He's gotta be a smart guy.
Yeah, did his law school thing, went to Asia, got his law degree there as well, because he said he'd get barred from the U.S. So he had a backup plan.
Always thinking ahead, this guy. Always thinking ahead. Love it. Joey, thanks for telling a couple of Tim Nelson stories, and best of luck over in Adelaide and then Auckland. Appreciate you coming on. We'll try and make story time with Joey a little bit more of a regular segment on here, because we got plenty of other stuff to talk about. I've heard you tell some more pretty crazy OG pickleball stories. So appreciate you coming on, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
By the way, anybody else come to mind that's like Tim Nelson esque, who's just
Zane.
Zane Affleck. I think of
100%.
Jeff Warnick. I think of
Yep.
being in like Newport Beach and watching Championship Court. Warnick's off in those like stairs, bleacher things, right? And he's just ripping beers with, I don't know who it was, and just screaming nonstop. I mean, that guy, as soon as he got out of a tournament, he would go grab some beers, chill by Championship Court, and just chirp anybody who's on the court.
Oh, 100%. That's where the best that was peak entertainment. Honestly,
Yeah.
PPA needs Jeff Warnick as a color commentator, like without a doubt. Warnick, it was another just great for the game as well. Like hopefully we get to see him over in San Clemente. Maybe he'll play that one. Who knows? I think he still plays some. I
Is
should
that
text Jeff actually.
That's where he's from? That's why?
He's from LA area.
Well, he was another
So-
one too who would just like have shorts down to like mid shin and just had a wacky style, super vocal, would just pull some absurd shots, like a super unique. I've never seen anybody play like him. Just
he was basically the
mechanics. Yeah,
originator of the tomahawk. He played full semi-Western grip, and he only used one side of the paddle, and he was so long that he could take basically anything out of the air. Couldn't dink to save his life. That was the Achilles heel of Warnick, but unbelievable hands, really bad drops, really good drives, Really good speed ups, really good counters. He was good at what he was good at. He was bad at what he was bad at, and I loved playing with Warnick back in the day. We had some good success. He and I played some very unconventional pickle together. Yeah, I would say Warnick, Zane, Affleck are up there.
I kind of forget how long you've been around the sport. When did you make your debut?
I started playing pro tournaments in 2018, 2019. I mean, I was playing with pros. I was playing with Dave Weinbach from like 2014 onwards. I never really played too many of the events. I played like the regional Midwest stuff, and then 2019 I played a few more: US Open, Atlanta, Beer City. Got my real job as an auditor for Deloitte, quit that about a year later, and went full-time pickleball in 2020. But I was already basically a pro in 2018, 2019, or at least at the pro level. So did you hear that Jack Monroe is considering going pro in pickleball after collegiate pickleball?
It'd be an interesting career. Yeah, I heard he was pretty good in college pickle.
Yeah, I saw that article from pickleball.com, or that post from pickleball.com today. It was pretty funny. It says Texas Longhorn standout Jack Monroe setting sights on professional pickleball after college. Jack commented, "Who's gonna tell him?" But they just won he carried the squad to the Collegiate National Championships that we had Jacob from Duper on last week to chat about. Seems like that was a pretty cool event, and it was Texas's first Collegiate National Championship. And what he told me today was that, and this is wild, I hadn't heard this before, but apparently the top two teams, Texas and TCU, gets to play in the mid-season tournament at Beer City Open against the challenger teams.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Literally, only when we were putting together that post, I was like, "What? Wait, what? That's just like a throwaway line." Yeah, it's sort of been like just packaged in with these other stories. I'm like, that's a story.
How is that not like headlining news for this? Like that should have been. I would have watched if I knew that like. Now, once I knew that Jack was in the finals, I probably wouldn't have watched. But if it was some other team in the final, I would have actually watched, you know?
I'm more interested in watching them play a challenger team than a challenger team play a challenger team.
1,000%. That's going to be the best rated challenger match of the entire year. That is super cool. So good for Jack. Good for the rest of the UT team. I hope they hooked him. Other news we've got, Trey Young's got a custom PaddleTech paddle out of seemingly nowhere. Trey Young just with a PaddleTech launch the other day. What do you think of that?
It is out of nowhere. It's just random. I do remember Tropical interviewing him at Major League Pickleball. Apparently Tropical, who they let on the mic, who, by the way, they should do that more.
100%. He was great.
He just said to the staff, like Jay or whoever was, managing that at Major League Pickleball, he was like, "I'm going to go interview Trey Young." And they're like, whoa, like we haven't gotten that cleared. And Tropical was like, "No, I'm just going to go do it." And went into the stands and like interviewed Trey Young for the broadcast, which I thought was just like a great story. But yeah, Trey Young, he's actually pretty big into pickleball. Like a lot of these owners obviously aren't, especially the athletes, but I think Trey's like pretty into it.
I really got people riled up on my X account because I posted, "Is he the most famous person to have a pickleball sponsorship?" And it was just like a battle of old people versus young people. All the old people are like Agassi. All the young people are like Trey Young. He's got way more followers. It turned into a contentious topic. I do think Trey Young is probably potentially more famous at this point, or at least among like our generation and beyond. He's more currently famous. I think Agassi at his peak, without a doubt, way more famous than Trey Young. But
I guess it depends on where you are. But if Andre Agassi walks into a restaurant and Trey Young walks into that same restaurant, which one of them gets noticed more? If you're in Atlanta and anywhere but Atlanta in the U.S.
That's a very good question that I don't know the answer to. Only other thing that I've got from my end was we're dropping a Major League Pickleball Power Rankings podcast. Me, Eric Tice, Maddie Pickles, and Caitlin Kerr are ranking all the MLP teams individually and as full teams. Once that drops, you and I will talk about that a little bit and hear your thoughts on what we got right, what we got wrong. But we're going to bring some of that content to the Pickle Pod as well. But yeah, we had fans interact, and rank these teams, and we had 50 different people who submitted their rankings, and we got fan vote as a part of these power rankings. So that'll give us a little something else to chat about on about a monthly basis. But next event we've got isn't for a little bit of time. We've got Major League Pickleball, and by the time this goes out, it's in about a week. Yeah, we've got some excitement surrounding that.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, welcome to PicklePod. Chris Rork is the founder of MUEV. We had to cut him off and tell him and Zane were going back and forth because they're both wearing MUEV apparel right now. We're like, all right, stop. We got to record this, and we'll restart it for on the pod. But Chris, you were telling us about the product you're wearing, and then I think the hoodie that Zane's got on right now.
Yeah, just it was hard to recognize fully with the microphone in front of it, but I was like, oh, is that the ProServe hoodie?
Yeah, and for those of you guys who are on audio only, just take me, Thomas, and Chris's word for it. I look phenomenal. Chris looks phenomenal. Like, we all look good. Tommy, your white is blending in. Is that the MUEV hoodie too?
We'll just say it is. Let's just pretend it is.
I don't have any of the spring stuff. I'm rocking the white, black, and blue, which I think was fall launch, right?
Yeah, we've got to get you an updated box. We have some really, really great stuff coming out, and
yeah, we've been playing over at Lifetime here recently, and I wear MUEV every time, so should be seeing some MUEV stuff in some of our upcoming videos. But Chris, for the people who don't know, can you just give us a breakdown of like, okay, what is MUEV? When were you founded? And what's the broader vision?
it might help to give a little bit of my backstory just to lend the brand a tad bit of credibility. My background, without giving up my age, it is older than Zane and Thomas by a long shot. So I'd probably be in seniors events compared to them. Despite the youthful look, I am considerably older. But yeah, I worked for Ralph Lauren for quite some time. I was based in Hong Kong. Initially, I was based in New York City, but was moved to Hong Kong. Worked on the supply chain and operations, and what that really entailed is making the product. And I got my hands into all facets of Ralph Lauren product. But one of my most favorite ones to work on was RLX, which is the performance apparel. So that's kind of a bit of the backstory. Like a lot of people, I got into pickleball during the pandemic. That was kind of the baseline. But what really, I think, hit me was the tribal nature and just how proud pickleball players were to be pickleball players. And I think there's a bit of that, friendly competition between, tennis players and pickleball players. And I think, and when I was looking at what people were wearing, all I saw were yoga brands and tennis brands and athletic brands. And I was like, there really should be a brand that comes out of the sport like Lululemon did for yoga. And I thought, and then as I kept tracking it, the number of people that were participating in pickleball were eclipsing that of what was yoga practitioners. And then I started studying the demographics and the earnings of a pickleball player versus a yoga player. And I said, man, this is something. One, I'm passionate about the sport. Two, I understand the product, and I think I can understand how to make better product than maybe what's being bought now coming out of sports like yoga or track or running, basketball, and just using it for pickleball. And so I didn't come up with the name MUEV. It was something, it was one of many. A lot of it really comes down to, we did an exercise about what the brand should stand for and its ethos and things like that. But one of the words that came up was, about movement, but I thought MOVE was just a little bit too basic of a name, and didn't have any cachet to it. We came up with MUEV, and a unique way to say it. And I guess some people have asked me if it's French, like MUEV or something. No, it's just it's an interesting way to say move and spell it.
Would you consider it more like on court or off court apparel? And maybe you have like a wheelhouse in one faction that you're really targeting, and then I'm sure there will be the other as well.
We have initially really focused on court performance, but the idea down the path is really to have on court, off court, and kind of lounge I'll call it lounge, but something that really is about the pickleball person's lifestyle, in terms of how they want to dress, or what do they want to wear when they're going to get a coffee, maybe 2-3 hours before they're going to play pickleball. We really felt the starting point should be with performance, and so we have a decent sized collection. I would say everything that we do, we try to have emphasis. Kind of there's a French word called raison d'être, which means reason of being, and I don't want to create styles just for the sake of creating them. I really want them to have a reason of why we produced it. And for those who actually speak French, please don't comment about how poorly I pronounce that. The performance is something that we want to stand on. Obviously, we want everything to look great as well.
Yeah, when I wear it, it feels like it feels like a combination to me between Chubbies, which is really, really light, but like retains a ton of water, it seems like, or it just, I don't know, it feels almost too light to me. And then Lululemon, which is like slightly heavier. Personally, I really like the stuff. Like, I like the little holes. I know the first version had a little bit bigger holes in the in the back. It actually had the little M on it for MUEV, which I didn't
that's
realize.
The chevron style. Yeah, that one's
the chevron
great.
style. I just thought it was whole. I didn't realize it was an M until I saw Carlos wearing it at the lab, actually. But I feel like this retains the perfect amount of water. When I'm playing, like, I don't actually, like, personally want the shirt that stays completely dry, because then you get hot. You don't want a shirt that's completely soaked either. I'm a fan of what you're doing over here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We've gotten a lot of, kind of our I'd say our 2 or 3 signature products would be, our performance tee, the baseline short, which is incredibly light. It has a light liner in it, not a compression liner. That's a really, really, it's got the exact same performance tendencies. Like, it's light. It would slightly get, it wicks away moisture, but you're not like completely 100% dry in it. You're probably like 98% dry, and it's a really, really light short. It's almost like playing naked. Naked but not naked. It's great in that. And then the chevron tee, the one you were referring to, that one's actually done with lasers, where we put in the logo in the back for ventilation, and then kind of a chevron.
I think we've had plenty of conversations about how some brands are, either they're repurposing product for other sports or activities for pickleball. As you said, a lot of people are wearing like yoga apparel out there, but it just feels like there hasn't been a brand that's premium, where somebody like you can talk about why a seam is a certain way. And it really is truly made first and foremost for the pickleballer. And I think we had a conversation about how, Lulu, to use them as an example, started in yoga. It was just such a good product that it ended up becoming this like universal athleisure brand. You have a similar philosophy of like, we want to make this product for pickleballers, but we want it to be so good that in a similar fashion, it could transcend the sport at certain.
Yeah, 100%. Like, my wife, I wouldn't call her a pickleballer, but I would say she's very athletic. She does Orange Theory. She does yoga. She jogs. She loves the leggings. She loves the sports bras. She's using them outside of pickleball, but she loves them. She's like, oh, they fit great. And that's the hope that we have, is that, our DNA will always be that we were born from pickleball, but we certainly aren't wanting to exclude, people that want to do other sports, from wearing our product. And I think that's the beauty, is pickleball's it gets a lot of crap for, it's not athletic. But when you look at high performing play, you watch Zane play pickleball, it's a little different than, the average guy down at the rec center. His style of play demands high performance. It's got to perform for him, or he's not going to play comfortably. And, we want that player to feel comfortable, but it's also going to work for the rec player as well. It's just going to feel better for him.
Yeah, it's a difference between like making something specifically for pickleball versus slapping pickleball on some pre-existing deal, right? Like, it seems like it's relatively transparent when some of these brands just slap pickleball on something or another, as opposed to tailoring the product for that individual sport. You see it across all the different pickleball products, right? You've got a fan in me. This stuff is, I enjoy wearing it, and I always gravitate towards it in the laundry pile that I have. So keep doing good work.
Chris, thanks for coming on. And this is one of my favorite facts about you and the brand, though it's a total tangent. You FaceTimed me one time and you were with Andre 3000 and I got to meet him. So that was very cool.
That was very cool. You want to hear something very coincidental? We started at 1:30. At 1:29, I was on with Andre 3000, and I said, Andre, I got to go. I have a podcast that I'm doing. He goes, for what? And I said, pickleball. And he was like, oh, very cool. And he said, I'll let you go. And I literally cut off as it hit 1:30. But yeah, I've done a lot of work with Andre and continue to kind of help him with things that he's doing. But yeah, that was cool that when I was out in LA, I said, oh, this is Thomas. And yeah, you got a chance to rap with him.
Yeah, we got to get him on the court. But yeah, so people can find you and the brand at muevbrand.com. And any launches coming up we should be aware of? I know you mentioned a couple items might go live today.
Yeah, the spring line is out. We're going to be dropping product for pretty much through April up to the beginning of May. And then we'll have some stuff over the summer that's coming out. By the time this podcast probably gets released, we just signed a deal with the St. Louis Shock. So we're going to be doing all their outfits, uniforms,
very cool.
all the way, for all their pros, all of their minor league, their outreach programs with clubs. We'll be putting something similarly together with the Chicago Slice. The APP just chose us to be the official apparel brand of the APP. And
very
so
cool.
We're going to be outfitting all of the APP staff globally. We're looking forward to a really good start to the second quarter. So
Yeah,
thanks for having
very
me.
cool.
And we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks,
All
Chris.
right. Cheers, guys.
Yeah. The only other thing is, depending on when this all breaks, I don't know the best way to classify it. Let's call it another major lawsuit that blows any other lawsuit out of the water that will take over pickleball news for potentially like the next year. So I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, we got some. It's been like there hasn't been enough drama this year, Thomas. There hasn't been.
You want drama? This is like Tour Wars on steroids, if it's as big as what I've been hearing. I've gotten some interesting phone calls. So I've had it on the topic list for a while now. I'm just waiting for it to actually drop. So that's going to dominate the headlines for a while. We'll see.
We've got to leave it at that. Pickle pod. I feel like I can't think of a better way to finish.
Yeah, no, that was good. You saying pickle pod with a question mark. Done.